and today I will be sharing with you guys how to stack a two-tier cake. And so basically what I'm sharing with you guys is how to stabilize your cake. And I want to tell you guys that this is something I really emphasize on when you're doing a two-tier cake or a really tall cake. So it can work for a two-tier cake, tall cake, or anything that's above 2 tiers, guys. You need to give your cake some support. So that's what I'll be showing you. Now, I've done lives before where I've shared how to use straws. That's milkshake straws, really strong ones. You can get them at Vituzote, and some places sell them. But if you can't find them and you're able to find these are Chinese chopsticks, and they have to be these Chinese ones because Japanese ones are a little skinny. These are Chinese ones. They're made of bamboo. They're strong enough. You can actually be able to use them for support. So it's more old school, but it still works no matter where you are. I do tend then to avoid them because they're a lot of work, and I want to show you what I mean a lot of work, but they still work, guys. You can get them. A lot of cake supply shops have both options of the straws. They also have a lot of these wooden dowels that you can use. Now, I do have a layered cake right here. We just kind of did, the prep work. So these are 3 cakes. So this is layering. This is when you put, 3 sizes of the same cake together. There's filling in between, but it's simply buttercream, American buttercream frosting. If you guys want, I can share the link on there. And then after that, it's just been shaved around just to try and get everything, looking nice and straight. You don't always have to do this, but if you find, you don't like how your cake looks like, you can always shave around the edge with a knife. So what I'm going to do is just put a crumb coat or like a thick coat. I won't even really put really much of a crumb coat. I'm just going to do a thick coat on there. And then I have a second cake. So I want to show you guys my second cake for your second tier. You always want to make sure it's a smaller size. So this is a 6-inch. This big one is a 10-inch. So at least it gives some space in between. And then I will finish it in the most simplest way, guys, because my lesson today is on doweling. So I'm going to bring this down here just so that it's easy. So when you're doweling, what you always need to do, or the standard thing to do, is to measure the diameter of your cake. You want to measure the diameter. I'm used to inches, so I'm going to be using inches, guys. And as you can see, this actually tends to be a 9-inch pan. I was wrong, not 10. It's a 9-inch pan. So this is the diameter of your cakes. And so what you want to do is for every 2 inches, you want to put a dowel, right? For every 2 inches, you want to do a dowel. So obviously, that's going to end up being 4.5. So you can opt to do 4 dowels, especially if you're doing, 2 tiers only. But if you were going higher, you could opt to actually do 5, right? But I don't need to do 5. I can do 4 to 5 dowels, right? So for every 2 inches, you want to put 1 dowel. This gives enough support to your cake so that you're actually able to put the dowels in there for support. Now, it's kind of technical, so I'm going to tell you all the things that I'm going to do before I actually get started, right? So I'm going to bring both of these sort of in frame so you guys can see. Okay, so I have both my cakes here. Now, for you to place this cake on here, you have to use what we call a cake plate. But since most of us, or most shops, don't always have these cake plates, all I've done is taken a little cardboard and, sort of loosely cut the size of this cake. Now realize I want it either the same size or slightly smaller than the cake. So as you can see, it's actually, basically the same size. I know it's jagged, guys, but it doesn't have to be so perfect. You can cut perfect if that's a thing for you. You just kind of want it the size or smaller than the size of the smaller cake. So this plate is what's gonna hold this bottom cake, and then so when you put it on here, it doesn't, collapse or anything. The reason why I'm telling you that whole story is you have to make sure that your dowels are within this plate or within this cake. They can't be out here because people will see them. So I have to make sure that I am making sure my dowels will be within in here, okay? So I just wanted to tell you that ahead of time because I'm about to start decorating and putting things around, and I don't want you to wonder what's happening, okay? So right now, guys, what I'm going to do is throw on a really nice, thin coat around this bottom layer, and then I'm going to continue and do that. So bigger the cake, the more the time you take.
The bigger the cake, the more
time
buttercream.
And more buttercream, by the way, guys. Lots of it. Lots of it. So if you're doing like a wedding cake or you're doing like, you know, a big cake, guys, make sure you adjust your frosting accordingly and strength accordingly as well. So you can use different tools, starting with a palette knife. I did have a right angle spatula nearby here, guys, but you know how the kitchen can get. So we're just gonna basically continue. Oh, good. So my semi-naked book is coming up real nicely, guys. So palette knife / icing spatula, whatever you like to call it. As long as you have a long one, right? This works out. If you have a scraper, like a side scraper, those really long ones, those really come in handy too. And of course, with buttercream, you always want to have some hot water, because what it does, guys, just makes your life so easy when you're smoothing everything. So I'm gonna try and get my edges right here. Now when you're, like I said, today my tip is how to give support and dowel a 2-tier cake. So realize that I never really focus on in the middle. My focus is on the edges because that's what people are gonna see. So really just kind of work on there. So by the way, guys, these tips work for both buttercream and whipped cream cakes. So guys, I just kind of got that semi-naked book going round. And then always clean up your board after. Of course, you want it to look nice. Now, what I'm going to do, guys, is just show you how I got one dowel, you know, done. By the way, guys, you need this, and then we become carpenters. You need pliers to do this. This is part of why you'll notice I tend to just deviate from these. But I wanted to show you because I'm always like, no, get straws. You can use these too. So for us to measure, because you can cut this way, but sometimes this doesn't always work for every one of them. So you might have to insert. You can always come here and, you know, make a mark, even though it's really hard to make a mark with a pen because it's very shiny, but you can. So what I tend to do, especially the first one, is just kind of go in the middle. You can measure if you're, you know, a perfectionist and all that. You can just like, you know, measure it in the middle. But what I'm gonna do, and by the way, I literally like wash my pliers in soapy water and rinse them. So Yeah, so you see where it's reached? You can tell usually by where your frosting has reached. You can place your pliers. I will come back, guys, later, and most of the time tend to fix. So I'm gonna lift a little, cut, like maybe basically, I've marked. What I've done is marked. But guys, because this is a piece of wood, I have to remove this. Come with it right here, right? And just kind of start cutting it. And all I'm doing is pressing so that you know. So guys, you see the work. Now I want you to know when I do this is all these, you know, pieces of wood chippings which are not good for humans to consume. So what you have to do, guys, is we have to get cling film on here. So I'm just gonna come here. Just because I don't wanna get all messy, I'm gonna cut a piece of cling film, and then I'm gonna cover my Chinese chopstick because it's the safe thing to do. Now, can you put it directly in there? Yes. Do you really want to give chippings to people, guys? No. I really hope not. Now you can cut it, or sometimes it just kind of go around. So you have covered your, you know, Chinese chopstick that you've cut off really nicely. We come back here, and I put it back in. So literally, this is what you're gonna do with most of them, guys. If you're doing anybody's cake, please. This is a cake for demo, so I'm not wearing gloves. If you're doing a cake for anyone, please make sure you're wearing gloves, guys. Now, I've put the first one to show you, but remember, I have to stay within this little plate of mine. So I have to place it here, and if you have a toothpick or something, I'm literally gonna use, and then you're gonna lightly draw around so that you know to keep within this space. Now guys, I had already cut, so I want to show you I had already cut them just to make my work easy. So here they are. And then remember I said you need 4, right? For every 2 inches, 1 dowel. So if I count my middle one, and yes, I know it's not perfect, you can come and count your diameter and make sure you have a perfect middle. I'm going to set mine 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I tend to just go around like this, and I can feel it's moving. So what I do, so this takes a lot of practice, guys, is move it there. And then I'm going to slip this out. Right? I'm just going to remove this. Alright, guys, so having offset, if you notice, guys, my palette knives, there's a straight one and there's an offset one. Having these offset ones are awesome, especially when you're doing stacking. Or if you have a cake lifter, for those who know, Top Serve Limited, places like those, they sell cake lifters. So my cake plate right here, I know it's not perfect, and as I said, I know it hasn't covered everywhere, but I'll come back later, and what I'm going to do is use borders to cover. Holding my cake plate, coming back here with my cake. So everything here, guys, is fine except for this one. It's coming out. Now, if it was a for real 2-tier, I would have pulled this out and cut it down or filed it down to size. But remember, guys, I'm telling you, these are the wooden ones. So much work. So I'm just going to place it really sort of. This is always tricky, guys. cream and buttercream, you will touch a lot of the areas. So sometimes I just come and smooth in here. For purposes of demonstration, guys, I'm literally just going to get the parts where you guys can see. Alright guys, so ta-da! I got my 2 tiers on there. I got support really nicely. My disclaimer here is I am aware this is a short cake and aesthetically pleasing. You do want this to be more layers because this is 3 layers. I showed you guys before I decorate. This is 3 layers. This is only 2, so I would have done a 3rd layer, but we're just kind of using what's in the fridge, guys. So this is my 2-tier cake, and you're like, okay, how do I finish this? When you put the 2 tiers in between, make sure you do, if it's fondant, use a bow or something. If it's buttercream, you can still use a bow or pipe a border over there. You know what I'm saying? And then that's it. You can use flowers. I just happen to have this topper that, you know, has been here for a while. Apparently we haven't had a wedding cake piece with me, so.